Welcome to the welcome.
That was too early of a point. We're professional.
Yes, we're on top of this. I will give you credit though.
That was
You
go.
tried to point.
That was the remix.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Ugh. Self-evident
He's
podcast
so white.
show. What? Wow. Wow. Racist. So next to me is uber racist of self-evident. You got Cari.
True.
Man.
I'm not that racist.
you do you guys ever use the token card? You're like, I mean, I can't be that racist. I married a
I've
Mexican.
used it for sure.
Yeah.
Fighting on
Good for
these
you.
crazies
People are
on social media.
the
This one lady on
alt-right.
ABC, I commented on some stupid article and she came after me, a racist.
Really?
I was like, look at my profile pic. Enough said. Like, okay.
I bet she left that thread
Yeah.
behind.
Okay.
So we are not that racist. Self-evident podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Tune in. I was cutting up an old podcast, and it was my testimony, and I was listening to it. I was like,
Wow.
boy, my accent was thick.
I have not listened to that. I listened to the short that you did, and I heard a couple like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to our worship leader, Alicia, who's from Wisconsin, and I was like, how did you don't have an accent? She goes, oh, every once in a while I let out a, oh yeah.
She does.
Oh.
And you'll hear it across the office too. You'll hear,
Oh.
oh.
It is what it is.
It's okay. She
Y'all
probably
be
doesn't
jealous.
listen, so. Yes, you be jealous of our northern accents. Mm. So before we get into it, do not forget to go to the selfevidenttruth.com. Elijah's pulling up. Sorry, man, I didn't give you any warning. I went hard left into that. So get yourself a t-shirt or maybe a sweatshirt.
Right here. Roll with the sweatshirt. It's my favorite sweatshirt.
It's
I
a
love
good
these
one.
sweatshirts.
They're so
fire.
comfortable
I know.
too.
So comfy.
Love wearing those sweatshirts. We get to wear them about 2 days in the year. So
but they're there.
But they're there just in case. I had an event. It was a Jenna event and super windy, pretty cold. I sold like 6 sweatshirts.
That's where we need to go. We need to go in the north in the winter.
And sell sweatshirts.
Killing.
Because I was looking at all these people. I was like, you're only going to wear this two days a year, but I'll sell it
one
to
of
you.
them.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Buy my merch. Okay. Easy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
Tired.
He is. So are we. So we're going to tell you guys, we pre-recorded this because of scheduling conflicts. So all of us are here on our own time.
8 o'clock at night.
8 o'clock at most of you hanging out on the couch right now.
Well, we're working.
We're working. Feel bad for us. Somebody.
Or you could just support us monthly and we can hire Easy E full time.
Oh!
And where can they do that?
At theselfevidenttruth.com. Click on the donate button on the upper right hand corner. Sign up for monthly support. I am being serious about that.
This is turned
we
into
do need some monthly support. So there you go.
PBS donation don.
Public broadcasting station.
Our goal is only $10,000 more.
That would be nice.
Donate to us before we go off the air. Please do.
There you go.
All right. That's it.
Done.
We're done.
Okay. Have a
good
good night.
See you guys.
Yep.
Show is over.
We attacked public broadcasting. What else can we do tonight?
We can attack NPR.
Yes, absolutely, which is part of public broadcasting, but
Same thing.
neither there. You know what else we'll go after?
Have a topic tonight. I promise.
You know what we're going to go after tonight?
What are we going to go after, Easy? The amazing, wonderful.
I'm pointing.
No.
No camera. No camera today. What are
the little clip, the little thing we sent you?
Go ahead and put it up.
I didn't know that was the
this
cue.
is Bush League right now.
That is what we're attacking.
We're going after the public teachers unions. Oh, I can't wait for the keyboard warriors. Their fingers are warming up.
And I was livid.
Okay, so those of you listening, no, put back up.
Yeah.
It says from the National Education Association, the first teachers union in America, educators love their students and know better than anyone what they need to learn and to thrive. I read it to Melissa, and she was like,
I know.
"You serious?"
I can't even, if any parent in America doesn't read that and think, what the heck? Like, no,
Right?
just no.
Well, and that's I when I asked you, "Hey, what do you want to talk about?" and you
Hmm.
brought this up, I thought it was perfect because you are a mom, you're a homeschool mom. You've been in this sphere for a while now. You
Right.
guys have done different schools as well as educating your kids yourself. And I'm curious, what's the first thing a mother thinks when somebody says, "I know what's best for your kid to learn and thrive"?
Right, right. I mean, well, we've done homeschool for, I think this is our second, well, technically third year, but we've done private schools, we've done public charter schools, and I don't care whether it's a private school or a public school or the teacher in kids ministry that tells me that they know better for my kids. Like Mama Bear is coming out, and I'm not
Right.
normally like that. Like, yeah, I'm pretty calm, but like when you
Yes.
tell me you know what's better for my kids, now granted, I will take advice from people about like my kids,
Yeah.
but when a whole association can a union can tell the majority of parents in America that they know better than what the parents do. I mean, I just, like I said, I was just livid because, like, to me, that undermines the authority of the parents. And any
Mhm.
parent who sends their kids to public schools, like, to me, I would read that and think, well, if I wasn't educated, if I wasn't
Right.
doing research, it would like cause me to step back and be like, well,
They know
maybe they
best.
do. They're the experts. Like, go
And
ahead.
and to your point, like you're saying, that whole expert idea is, we watched it through COVID.
Hmm.
We watched this happen for several years where you got to trust the experts, just follow the experts. The experts know best. And if you disagree with them at
Hmm.
all of a sudden the whole system comes after you. And this is that again.
Well,
Mm.
if you look at the whole term experts, literally the experts have always been wrong. Like when they came out with what, like
You're not wrong.
diagnosing depression, weren't they giving people like what was it?
Shock therapy.
Yeah, no, shock therapy, but like lithium, or what
Oh
was
yeah,
the,
yeah.
they were giving them like some crazy drug, and then like years later, oh, that's a very addictive drug. It's like the
Opium.
experts have, yeah, opium, they've always been wrong, like
Yeah.
always.
And
And so to me, like 21st century, it doesn't make any difference. The experts can still be wrong and have been proven, especially the last 3 years, to be wrong.
and there, what happens is you get this idea or this narrative that gets pushed forward,
Yeah.
and so everybody latches onto it, and then they lambast anybody who pushes against it, who says, well, maybe that's not so right,
Right, right.
and you watch it all across science. It happens, like you said, all the time, where this prevailing idea is just, that's what it is,
Yep.
that's how true it is, and somebody raises their hand and goes, maybe not." And it's like, he gets burned at the
Is that how
stake.
they say it?
Yeah,
Like the
every
Kermit
time.
the Frog, maybe not.
Hey, maybe
Hello,
not.
Kermit the Frog here.
Hello.
Um, yeah,
That's
no,
just Jordan Peterson before his time, right?
totally Kermit the Frog. I know that. Well, that's what, like, to me, when you talk about the school district, and we've done shows on this. Massey
Yeah.
and I did one on specifically homeschooling. Had the Great Homeschool Convention, shameless plug. Massey and Mike speak there at the
Coming back around.
six conventions
Yep.
throughout the U.S. at the Great Homeschool Conventions, and you can register for their conventions, and amazing. But we talked about homeschooling to them, and talked about how there's this kind of big exodus out of the public school system. And to me, when the NEA tweets this, to me, it's more about control than it is really about the kids.
Yeah.
And this is, I like, when I was thinking about this and just even reading your notes here, I want to be careful because there is a lot of quote unquote good teachers,
Yeah.
but even those teachers, and I want to call a spade, they don't often stand up against the system, the NEA system, the political agenda you have, which point two we can talk about, the political agenda of
Yeah.
the school system. And they don't
Right.
often stand up against that.
And
So
and I do want to get into that because already like I said, I can hear the keyboards furiously going, especially in Martin County, because we caught flack because
Yeah.
we had, and I want to put this out there now, and we may have to clip this and put this front page.
Mm-hmm.
People like Amy Pritchett and Jennifer Russell,
Mm-hmm.
they just because they were on the show does not mean they have to condone or agree with what we're saying tonight.
Right.
This is our opinion. And I get really tired of people making these attachments that, oh, well, they were on the show once and that show, so they agree with everything that show has ever said, ever, anytime. You don't agree with your own wife 100% of the time.
Right. Right.
So do not take what we say tonight as, oh, well, they must ascribe to those beliefs. Okay? Don't. And I'm very tempted to send this clip to them so if somebody tries that, they can put it right in there
Right.
and say,
Right.
they with their own tongue said, we appreciate Amy and Jen.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean they believe everything we believe. I'm not going to speak for them.
Right.
These are not their
Yeah,
words.
we may
These are
not
mine.
believe everything they believe.
Exactly. Now, that being
That's
said,
the idea of liberty.
oh no,
It's
liberty?
dangerous.
Dangerous. Everybody put on your
People can
mask.
think for themselves.
No. So that being said, I think public teachers unions are a waste. There, I said it
Out loud.
out loud. Clip that one, Media Matters. Okay, so, but like you were talking about, there are teachers who are good,
Mm-hmm.
and the system is built to crush them, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
And I want to just give real quick 30-second history on this
Yeah.
whole thing. So in the 1830s, there was a rise of mandatory schooling. So before that, it was voluntary. You could choose to send your kids to the local school. You could teach them yourself, that kind of thing. Mandatory schooling started really moving forward. You also saw the increase of standardized testing and the rise of teacher colleges. Now, everybody raise their hand who thinks standardized testing actually does
I
something
know.
good.
I literally, when you said that out loud, like cringe. Like,
right?
oh god, like standardized testing. I just look at my 3 kids. We have how many homeschool families in?
Right.
How many kids in our church? I teach
Tons.
4th and 5th grade kids church every
Yeah.
month. There is not one kid in there that functions the same way. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? So not one kid in there learns the same way. And that's the beauty of homeschool, obviously, that you can dissect it and minister. Like okay, for me, we all have the stuff. They all have the stuff that they need to do. That's all
Yeah.
the same. But then Isaiah's reading like a Constitution book now. Nathan wanted a Karate Kid book, and Aaron wanted a Patrick Mahomes book. So it's like
That's
you
cool.
bring it to what they want and what they can learn. And so the standardized testing, it's a bunch of
Oh,
malarkey.
it's and I when I was doing this, I was thinking about this whole process, and it really kind of hit me of I used to think standardized testing was a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's baked into the system that way to produce a result. Because what are they trying to do? And this little hint before I get into it, right? They want you thinking a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you had the rise of teachers' colleges. These colleges were designed to teach structured curricula and to students for the goal of a common catechism about America and common obedience to the government. Now, why is that? It was built off the Prussian system. The Prussian system was truly a military state, and they were training their kids in their schools to be obedient subjects to the
Yep.
state to make the
Yep.
state greater, right? Whatever the state tells you to do it. And you had guys like Horace Mann who thought that system was great. Okay, well, we're going to put this into place. So now back to the standardized testing.
Yeah.
With that in mind, of course they're not going to be pushing for actual creativity and analytical thinking
Right.
and
Robotics.
logic and reason.
But
Yeah.
robots. Yeah.
Let's build robots.
Yeah.
So when you look at standardized testing, what is it? Rote memorization.
Yep.
Memorize this. Regurgitate.
Right. And they legit had to lower the standard
Yes.
constantly for the standardized testing because they still haven't figured out that kids don't learn all the same. And the fact that, I mean, public schools just, the whole system doesn't work. So, and you have to have something that quote unquote proves that it's working. So then they put a standardized test in place. to find out that it's not working. So then they lower the standard.
We're so great at teaching your kids. We have to keep lowering the standards.
Right.
Can we put that tweet back up there just for 1 second? I want people to remember this. Educators love their students. I kind of doubt that, but and know better than anyone what they need to learn and to thrive. I want you to
Right.
tell me
How
what
many
has
of our-
happened over
yeah,
the past 50
right.
years.
How many are thriving? Tell
right?
me.
Tell
Did
me.
you
I
guys
actually
know-
what?
Did you guys know that the guy who actually made standardized testing told like school systems to not do this because it does not work?
Really?
Yeah.
That's a good little tidbit.
Yeah,
I
that is
wanna
a great
find his
tidbit,
name.
for real. I actually we lived when we first moved here, lived next to a couple who were from India,
Yeah.
and they were both in the medical field. And she had young kids, and we were, out with the kids one day, and she was telling me that she came here when she was in 10th grade and started in the public school system. And she said that when by the time she got to college is what she was learning in India when she was in 10th grade. They came over like when she was in 10th grade.
Whoa.
And what she started learning in college here is what she was learning when she came over and she was in 10th grade. And I'm just like staring at her like, I mean, of course, I get it because I believe you.
Right.
But
It's and the New England primer,
yeah, yeah,
like I've used that as an example to people. I was like, we don't realize how smart kids were a couple hundred years ago
right.
compared to what we're teaching them today.
Yeah,
We're lucky if they can say their ABCs by the time they're in second grade. Back then, they they were doing multiplication
right,
in like first
right.
grade, and it's just outrageous stuff.
Yeah, night and day.
Yeah.
For sure. It's crazy.
But
But go ahead.
more no, go for it.
I was just gonna say, like, when you talk about standardized testing,
Mhm.
it really is a dumbing down of kids and
Yeah.
Americans. And I was just talking, and then we can maybe get into this in a little while. But I was talking to somebody today, Sue Trombino with
Yeah.
Women Impacting the Nation.
Check her out.
Yep, Women Impacting the Nation, amazing. And we were talking about, she was just so frustrated, the elections, and she asked me
Yeah.
what my thoughts were, and I was like, well, of course I'm frustrated, but I don't work any harder now than when we had Trump in office. I
Right.
put my head down and I do the same, because whether we have a Republican in office or a Democrat, evil still exists. And the gospel needs to be spread, and the knowledge of our liberties and where they come from need to be spread, no matter who's in office. And I said what it did, and I had kind of felt this burning in my heart, burden, whatever,
Yeah.
for a few weeks now or a month, planning our 2023 year and really looking what our focus is. And I just felt this like burden and prayer to get back to our main focus of reaching the youth, which is what
Yeah.
we started. And we still do that, obviously. And the main of our events are not the main, a good portion of our events are youth based events.
Yeah.
But the just this past week, just really feeling this burden and prayer that somebody has to stand in the gap for these kids who are being raised up by the NEA
Yeah.
and these teachers. And I can't wait till the school gets it right or the NEA gets it right, because that's why we're here in this spot. And I just feel like for so long, I don't want to point fingers because there's always somebody to blame. I'm just saying this so we can all wake up and take a reflective look on our involvement in how to preserve freedom. That the Republicans and the conservatives have not grasped the concept that we have to, like, a good portion of our funds, campaign funds, should be going to how do we get the youth reached and involved and educated.
Right.
And so, and we don't do that well as conservatives. And so, like, I just, for 2023, really want to focus our efforts on reaching the youth. So if you know of a school or a co-op or a youth group, I told her I'm willing to go anywhere
Yeah.
where kids are, because just because we can't get into public schools, well, kids are, I mean, they have other things that they do where we
Right.
can reach them. And so I don't know. I just, all that to say, the NEA, that it doesn't, I mean, yes, this is horrible. We're going to call it out, but what is our plan of action after that?
Right.
Because the school district is not going to get it right in
Exactly.
teaching liberty. They're just not.
No, because government dollars.
Right.
Right. And
Which goes to the political agenda portion.
and you've got these teachers unions that I don't want to get into the whole Marxist idea,
Yeah.
right? Because it's kind of an easy, the conservatives, it's almost like Godwin's law, like Hitler comes up at some point. For conservatives, Marxism comes up at
Yeah.
some point. Now, it definitely had its tentacles and influence in the teachers' unions, right? You look at the red fist that's
Yeah.
everywhere. But more importantly, it's so connected into government and the dollars flow back and forth. And if people are like, oh, no, no, teachers' unions are all about education, let me ask you this: how many dollars from the teachers unions have gone to conservative candidates in the past 40, 50, 60 years? I'll wait.
Tweet, tweet.
Tweet, tweet,
Yeah.
tweet, tweet. Right now, how many dollars have gone to Democrat candidates? Unions, public unions, are a central pillar of the political process. Even this last primaries, we
Hmm.
were talking to a candidate, and the person they were running against had the support of several public unions, which meant those unions were out canvassing for that candidate. They were
Mm,
donating to that campaign. They were doing vote drives for
right.
that campaign. Like, it's a political machine.
Right.
And you can't tell me that the teachers unions are not a political machine.
Right.
If you want me to take you seriously, get out of the political process. But you won't.
Right.
It's too important for you because control and that connection between them and government is not healthy.
Hmm.
And this is where people, oh, we need teachers unions. How often do they actually represent the conservative who's standing against the system?
Right.
Like, and that's where it gets into what you were talking about of like, there are those good teachers who just don't feel they can stand up, and or they try to stand up and they get crushed by the
Hmm.
system. And it's really sad because you get this teacher who doesn't like what's going on. They're trying to stand up. They get crushed by administration.
Hmm.
The teachers union turns their backs because they're not going to
Right.
defend that because that's a crazy conservative. And so these teachers end up hopping system to system or
Or
forced to
just
retire
submitting. Yeah.
early or submit.
Yeah.
you
I
know?
mean, there are like a number of stories though of teachers who have stood and won.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long drawn out
It's
battle.
a
And then
fight.
if you are gonna stand up, you have to be prepared for a long fight.
Mhm.
But they do win because the truth and real law is on their side. But I was going to ask you to explain. So, like, for the average person who doesn't know what the teachers union does, like, what do
Right.
they actually do?
Good question. They waste time
And money.
and money.
There you go. Done.
I'm gonna get so much hate. I have family members who are teachers union. I don't care. I don't agree with it.
Give
Anyways,
me their number. I'll send them this
yeah,
podcast.
yeah, exactly. Hey, check this out.
Here's
Let's
never
go
mind.
figure. It'll probably be the first one too. First one they ever watch. So the teachers union. So what the unions are supposed to do, the idea behind it is collective bargaining. It's so the unions, that whole idea got started of the workers will come together, they'll have more strength to negotiate and fight with management ownership,
Hmm.
right? We don't think you're paying us enough. The conditions are horrible. We'll go on strike if you don't work this out with us. So it was a move to influence the atmosphere, right? Of course, unions made it into the public sector. And I firmly disagree with public unions. Now, people will say, well, they support the teacher if there's
Yeah.
a fight between administration and the teacher, or, the school district and the teacher, right? Question is how often that representation is balanced. But what I don't like is a teachers union will go in to negotiate a contract with the government. There, it's not adversarial. And here's why: because that government official knows they want the backing of the teachers union because then they get a whole lot of support money and movement. If they try to stand against the teachers union, all of a sudden the teachers union will remember that, say, well, we're in the political process, we're coming against you. The taxpayer is the one who's watching the whole fight over his own dollar.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and that's what frustrates me is the taxpayer doesn't really have a voice in that whole thing.
Right.
People,
Even though we're literally the ones paying for all of it.
right? And it's frustrating to watch because teachers unions, public unions have so much power and influence.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we see? The kid left behind.
Right.
The when we watched COVID and we watched these teachers unions fighting to keep schools closed, fighting for distance learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Fighting to keep masks on the kids and keep the kids in little cages around their desks when they finally did come back and all of that. Like, are you actually for my kid
Right.
or for your movement? You
Right.
know, it's,
So do all teachers have to be a part of the union?
that I can't answer definitively. I don't believe so,
Okay. I'd like
but
to.
and I think it may go different from district to district,
Yeah.
um, because I know there are some cases where dues are automatically taken out of their
Paycheck.
paycheck,
Yeah.
right? Which is totally crazy to me.
So the
But
NEA. Okay. So I'm just maybe should have. I should have
thanks,
asked.
thanks
I
for
should.
putting me on the spot.
I should have looked this up before, but I didn't even think about it. So the NEA is funded by teachers paying a fee.
Yes, they pay dues.
They
So
pay dues.
yep,
They're not funded by any. I mean, they probably are funded by some public money.
yes, as
So
well. Yeah,
what?
yeah. There's it. So money I think comes in from different avenues, but the big majority of it is the teachers'
Right. Okay.
paychecks portion is pulled out. Uh, but the union goes to negotiate contracts for the teachers. And that's where that gets messy is all of a sudden this whole contract process is two people fighting over your dollar.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm just in the natural, logical thinking.
Right.
Teachers still don't get paid that much.
No.
So what is the point of the NEA? Like to negotiate a crappy pay?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Good for
sign
you.
me up. Where do I sign? Where do I send my dues? Like, what? I mean,
such
because we
good
have a
point.
friend who's an electrician and he's in a union, but
Yeah.
they get paid bank.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what this union is useful for.
That's a really good question because they're especially like construction unions and
Yeah.
all of that, they
They make
pull in better
Yeah.
bank. And that's a good question because well, America spends something like we're like number 4 in the developed world in dollars spent per student. We're at best middle of the pack in
Yeah.
terms of
outcome.
test
Like,
scores
yeah.
and
Right.
results. And our teachers are still saying how poorly they're paid. The math doesn't make sense then. If we're spending more money than most countries
Yeah.
in the world, we're getting middle of the road results at best,
At best, yeah.
and the teachers are still saying they're not getting paid well enough. What is it exactly that you do here, teachers
But
union?
what do you do?
But what do you do?
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and it kind of leads me to the thought of even I was just thinking about that quote, right? They know the educators love their students and know better than anyone what they need to learn and thrive, right? So you have, and I see this on TikTok all the time. I watch TikTok. I do, where teachers
Shameless plug.
are leaving the field
Yeah.
in mass quantities and complaining about how hard it is to teach kids nowadays. But you have the NEA basically saying to get rid of the parents' involvement.
Yes.
So what do you expect is going to happen? You're going to have a bunch of kids who are not raised at home because
Right.
you're saying you know better.
Right.
So I mean, because you and I briefly were talking about this, like this rise of ADD and ADHD, and like, I don't even know where to go, but it just to me connects because you have a system basically saying we know better, and that same system is saying these kids are being harder and harder to teach. But you basically wanted to take them over, so take them over. Like,
would you raise them
yeah,
already?
if that's what you want, you know better,
Right?
Because like going back to the experts, like I think ADD and ADHD came out like when we were in school in the 90s, late 90s and mid 90s. And like and I was talking about this with Massey. We have more everyone goes to therapy now. We have more drugs for mental illness. We have more counselors, more people psychologists, more systems and things set in place to serve mental illness and help people walk through it, and it's worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So, and kids, and I was looking this up, and I think the number, I mean, there's different numbers you kind of always get, but it's in like 6.5 million kids in America from 4 to 17 are diagnosed with ADD, ADHD.
Right.
And like this kind of hits close to home because of what we just experienced with somebody saying that our oldest, Isaiah, they're like, he has ADD, he has ADHD, and like she's like, I don't want to say too much because if she watches a clip, and I'll have to tell
Yeah.
Lily not to put this clip out, but and she was just kind of going off about how our oldest Isaiah is ADD, he does this,
Yeah.
and it was, and he's not going to be able to hold down a job, and he's going to be just like this person who can't thrive and function in life. And like, so I'm like, okay, what happened? What did he do? And she's like listing all this stuff off, and I'm like, so he's a 14-year-old boy. Like, and so that's like
He
all
doesn't
this
have a brain at this point.
right, 6.5 million, all this diagnosis of all this stuff, like 90% of it, so they're kids
Yeah.
and they're not getting love and discipline at home.
Right.
You know what I mean? And again, it's the experts are wrong.
Yes.
And I'm going to say it on this ADD thing, they are wrong.
And they double down. And like you're pointing out, I think what frustrates me the most is
Sorry, it goes back
Go
to
for it.
standardized testing does not work. And
Right.
then when it does not work, they have to have something to blame.
yes.
So we're going to blame ADD and ADHD because your kids can't sit 6 hours in a desk with a half-hour recess and a half-hour lunch
I
and learn like that. And
and
fun facts, boys get ADHD more than girls
oh, go figure.
because they're boys.
Hey,
I have
Cari,
3 boys, so I
Cari.
know.
just little interview question. What is it like to be the mother of a boy when he's 5 years old?
It's like a constant WWE ninja war party that you have to keep alive with lots of bodily functions being talked about.
Butts and poops and farts. Constant. In my house, it is, what is it? Toot, toot, butt,
Right.
butt, toot, toot, all
Right.
the time.
Well, and that's like
24/7.
your son, right?
Yes.
I could easily see somebody looking at him,
Oh,
a teacher, like he's ADD, he's
Oh, yeah.
ADHD, and it's like, no, the kid has like he's an extreme extrovert,
yeah.
and he has lots of energy because boys that age do, and
Go
that's
figure.
what I'm like. With this situation that I was talking about with our oldest, I'm like, I refuse to label my kid
Right.
and let you label my kid. Now, am I saying that like ADHD doesn't exist? I'm not necessarily saying that, but it's funny that like when our parents were younger, it wasn't really a thing.
No.
I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't learning disabilities. I mean, we have a friend whose son has, a clear dyslexic thing, and he actually prayed and he had a dream that God was going to heal him, and the next day he woke up and he could read. It was
Whoa,
amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, but so I'm not saying that doesn't exist. It's
Yeah.
to me, it's the overreaching labeling of the system,
Right.
and it damages our kids.
And before people go, oh well, it's all the stuff they intake. My kid does not eat a bunch of sugar. It's actually pretty rare that he has sugar. My kid doesn't watch a whole lot of TV. He doesn't play video games. He is just at 11 all the time.
Yeah.
He's 24/7. And you're absolutely right. Like Melissa and I have talked about that. If we put him in school, I was telling her this, within the first week, we'd be getting a phone call.
Yeah.
We think that maybe Isaac is
Yeah.
ADD.
Right.
No, he's a 5-year-old.
Right.
Like, and you think about it, putting these boys in this system where they are sitting at a desk, like you said, for 6 hours a day,
Mhm.
with a half-hour recess here and a half hour there, and maybe 45 minutes for lunch.
Yeah.
And you want him to learn.
Right.
Now he'll learn your facts or whatever, and you can shove them down his throat. But all he's learning really
Yeah.
is school sucks.
Right.
And what I love about homeschool is my kid will learn the same amount in 2 hours
Mhm.
that he'd have to go all day to that building for.
Right. Right.
And he can get it done. He's done what he needed to do. Head on out.
Well, and
learn
that's the thing
his
too,
way.
is like, Massey's calling me. Everyone wants to say hi to Massey. that, when we were talking about every kid learns different, we had a homeschool, like when we were in this group and everyone was homeschooling, a lot of the moms, didn't have kids yet, but a lot of the moms were just starting out in homeschooling. And the one veteran homeschooling mom,
Yeah.
that we were friends with, I think she had like 8 kids and 7 or 8 kids and homeschooled them all. And that's what she emphasized, that every kid learns differently.
Right.
And she said that one of her friends was super worried about one of their sons that just was very like lethargic, almost didn't show much emotion, didn't show much passion about like any learning thing. And she said that something like the Lord spoke to her, just like leave it in my hands and continue to do what he actually ended up getting a job at the Pentagon, where
Whoa.
they needed somebody with a stable emotions that didn't show, like that could
Wow.
function in a very high stress environment
Yeah.
but remain stable. And that was his personality. And what would worry maybe, a teacher, a public school teacher, or was his personality and what God had called him to do. And
Right.
so I think about like Isaac, like, or, Isaiah, like what one says is a problem is part of their calling,
Yes.
and who they're called to be. And I mean, it's just, to me, it's so obvious. And it's like you want to shake parents. Like, why can't you see this? It's so
Yeah.
obvious. Nothing is wrong with your kid.
Right. Your kid is
Something's
just
wrong with the system.
and that's really kind of our capper on this is the teachers union comes out and I laid my my
Yeah.
opinions on teachers union. But the teacher union comes out and they say, "We know your kids better than you do." That's really what they said at
Right.
that. Because we know them better than anybody. We know what's best for them better than anybody. They don't. And here's why, because a teacher has a classroom of 20, 25, 30 students
Yep.
and has to get them all through that lesson and
Right.
prepare them for the standardized test to turn in the grades
End
so
goal. Yeah.
administration won't try to fire them or move them around somewhere, which the teachers union will just protect them anyways. That teacher does not care about your kid.
Mm-hmm.
They do, but they don't.
Right.
At the end of the day, what they're actually focused on is, can I get this kid to pass this test and get the grade so then we can get the standardized testing to get the
Right.
funding that we need for the classroom. It's
Right.
a perverse incentive. They don't know your kid better than you do,
Mm-hmm.
because if you are teaching your kid and you're watching your kid struggling, there's something in you that breaks of like, I need to figure out how to help my kid
Yeah.
succeed.
Right.
And the Lord is so good to help you connect. I see what's going on. My kid needs to be moving while we're talking about this,
Yeah. Right.
right? And Melissa said he does so well when he's swinging. If he's swinging,
He can like
yeah,
learn. Yeah.
yeah, he'll do all of it.
Right.
He just has to be moving. Now, in a classroom setting,
Yeah.
if he hops out of his desk, get down,
Yeah.
sit down, be
Yeah.
quiet,
Yeah.
they
Well,
don't know.
right. No, and I mean that, again, it goes back to, like, I think when you talk about the NEA and the government agenda, is basically it is forcing these teachers where they can't care about the kids.
Right.
Because I mean, we grew up in the 90s in public school. We had a lot of teachers that actually did care about us as kids. But when you put in a system where it matters to get them through,
Mm-hmm.
you have to get them through. You have to pass a standardized test. Like, you are forcing that teacher to put something before the priority of
Right.
each individual kid.
And that's what gives us school systems like Baltimore, when they were having high school graduating classes that had 0% proficiency in
Yeah.
like English
Yeah.
and math. Something failed here,
Yeah.
and it wasn't the kid.
And that's like the basic. Like,
Yeah.
if you can read, you can do anything.
Right.
You can read and do math. Like, those should be the basics. Like,
Jordan Peterson even says like the if you can something to the effect of, if you can read, write, and talk
mhm,
well, you're dangerous. You can do anything.
right.
Right.
It's so simple.
It very much is.
And that's the other thing. One of the reasons one of the main reasons, obviously our travel schedule, but one of the main reasons we had our kids at a private school that we loved.
Yeah.
But the amount of time that they have to fill up in a day because they're there, they
They gotta
learn
do something.
so much useless information.
Yeah.
Like, useless. And we just actually had I had our boys. I said, find a place in the world that you want to visit and do research on it. And so they all picked a place. And so I wrote out these questions, and then they like, you know, looked up pictures, got the population, where was it, and then I had them look up how much tickets are in hotels. And they're like, I loved
Nice.
this project because it's like it's real life application instead
Right.
of when my oldest was in sixth grade, the last time he was in a school setting, they were writing uh, Bible verses in Chinese on popsicle sticks. And I was like, yeah, we're done. We'd be done. Like,
How do you say that in Chinese? Right.
yeah,
But what I love about the project, and this is something that people can take away with from this, is your project didn't stop at tell me about the country.
yeah,
Your project continued of how would you get there?
right.
How would you travel?
Who would you bring? Yeah,
Who,
like, yeah,
right. Like that's real world application
yeah.
because these kids are getting out of high school and they have no idea
How to live,
how to right, how to pay a bill, how to
right.
book an
I mean,
airplane,
they don't
you
even
know?
do home economics anymore.
Oh,
Like,
heck no.
wait, was that home ec? Where? What was the class that you sewed and learned how to cook?
Home ec.
Yeah, home
Yeah.
ec. Like, they don't they don't
No.
even do that.
No.
Like, it's crazy. Although, fun facts, I had my mom sew my shorts in home economics for me. Did you have to sew in home
Yeah.
economics?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to sew a pair of shorts, and my mom sewed them for me because I was out.
Mom, do my homework for me.
Yeah.
I was a scout, so we had to learn sewing and scouting.
So you already knew.
Yeah,
Oh,
I,
cheater.
I was nerd.
Was
All
a
my friends quit, so
nerd.
I quit too. Nerd.
You know what's so funny about that? Bringing up my parents
Yeah.
is this might be a time for a different show. What are we at? We're at like 44 minutes. But I tried to go back and find the video. It was a TikTok. It was a guy complaining. He's walking and he's filming himself and he's complaining about how this generation has it so much harder than the boomers. And he's like, I talk to my grandparents and I tell them what I'm struggling with, financially, you can't buy a house. And his response is work harder. And he just goes off on that's the
Yeah.
only response of the boomers is to work harder. And then he just goes off and how much harder he has it. And I was just so livid in that I just went off on Massey, not like
Yeah.
about this
Start
video.
beating him.
Yeah,
while
no,
he-
I just went off because and I tried to find it, that particular video last
Yeah.
night and found all these other videos saying the exact same thing. And I'm going to make a video on our TikTok page.
Do it.
Like, you can't talk about and blame and mock the boomer generation unless you're willing to live like the boomer generation, which was
Ooh.
not going out to eat. They didn't buy $5 coffees. They weren't wearing Nike and Under Armour. My mom sold all my dad's clothes when they first got married. Like, live like
Right.
them
Right.
and then come talk to us. Like, I was just, which I don't even know how I segued into there because we're talking about the school system,
I
but
like it.
talking
Go after.
about growing up in that
Yeah.
time era and even the schooling system at that. I mean, my parents grew up praying in school and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and like they had the 10 Commandments posted on the walls. Like,
Right.
I don't know. It's just, that's another show. I
And
think we should do a show on that.
and along with that other show, there is a responsibility of the parents in the household that is not being
Right.
met.
And that
Right.
was understood
Right.
way back
You know,
in the
and
day.
and that's so for all the firepower against the teachers unions tonight, at the same time, like you're saying, like the responsibility of the parents in the household, and I think especially
Right.
parents today just started waking up during the whole COVID thing
Yeah.
because we get complacent with the teachers unions who say, well, we're the experts, let us
Right.
take care of it. Oh, okay, here's my
Right.
kid, and
Right.
and the schools have become babysitters.
Mm-hmm.
The kids get home and parents aren't interacting with their kids like they're supposed to, or plenty of divorced households, and just
Well, then that's what I was
yeah.
just going to say. If 20, 30, 40 years ago, the NEA would have never been able to say that
No.
because the parents, the generation of raising kids has changed from what our parents grew up with. Like, again, you had parents who were like super involved, super understood what discipline and love meant. And I mean, I did a video on TikTok about this. this lady shared, she said, my kid, I just got out of teacher conference, and my kid who's, a monster at home they said, she's amazing at school. And it's like, it just got me thinking about how parents don't understand what true love and discipline. And I'm not saying we're perfect. We screwed up majorly, but I also will never regret teaching my kid what no meant.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what I think is lost. So the reality that the NEA said this is because they believe they can, because of what the parents are lacking.
That's a great point. And I unless you have anything
No,
else, I think that's
Drop the mic.
yeah. No, don't. No. All right. So, guys, if you are part of a teachers union, go ahead and send your hate mail to easye@gmail.com. Let him know how you feel. This is all his opinions. We're just spouting what he thinks and believes. No, that's fine.
I'm glad you actually listened to me.
Yeah, I'm here for you. No, that's fine. If you got a differing opinion, go ahead, let it loose on the comments. Why not? Sure. I really don't
Yeah,
care.
do it. Let's
Do
go.
it. Whatever. Anyways, check us out. We will be back on Monday morning. We should have Massey back. Right
Not for Monday.
now.
He's flying back Monday.
All right. So you will be back with the Easy E and Mike show. Guest host Mike with the man Easy E, Little Nap, E Dizzle.
Honestly, out of all days, I would be Little Nap today.
Yeah. I think all three of us were like, I want a nap.
Yeah,
Little nap.
for real.
Big nap.
Let's go.
All right. So we're going to go nap. Guys, you have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for Cari for stealing the spotlight.
I try.
So it's always great to get outshined, see the numbers grow when she shows up. Whatever, grace us with your
He
presence.
does all the work.
Yeah, it's just somebody's got to be the face of everything. All right, guys, have a great day. Love y'all.